It was 2 a.m. The entire city was swallowed in darkness. Ada was barefoot on the tiled ground behind her family's flat, walking to the toilet. Her phone was dead. There was no touch, no light, nothing. And then she felt it. Something warm, something alive, something that moved beneath her foot. In the next 2 seconds, her life flashed before her eyes. Because in the darkness, pressing against the sole of her foot was one of the deadliest creatures in Nigeria, and Ada had nowhere to run. This is the story of how Ada survived the night that almost killed her, and how she discovered that her survival was meant for something bigger, much bigger. The power cut came around 8 p.m., like it always did in the Sunshine Estate on the outskirts of Port Harcourt. Ada heard the loud click as the electricity pole outside their flat went dark, followed by the silence that only a blackout can bring. She was in her room, lying on her bed, trying to finish a chemistry assignment for her university classes. The laptop screen that had been lighting up her face suddenly went black. Here we go again, she muttered to herself, shaking her head. Ada was 21 years old, a second-year student at the University of Port Harcourt, studying chemical engineering. She had the kind of face that made people trust her immediately, dark eyes that seemed to see everything, a natural smile, and a no-nonsense attitude that came from being the first child in a struggling family. Her mother had sacrificed so much to get her into university, and Ada felt that weight every single day. She could hear her father shouting from the sitting room, "Efe, where is that generator fuel? This thing is becoming a daily wahala." Her father, Efe, was a retired civil servant who spent most of his time complaining about the state of Nigeria. Their generator had been acting up for weeks now, and fuel was becoming too expensive to run it every night. So most evenings, they just sat in the darkness and waited for the light to come back. "It is finished, Papa," her younger brother Jaden called out from the corridor. "We used the last of it yesterday." Ada listened to the back and forth from her room and decided she didn't want to be part of the argument. She set her laptop aside and picked up her phone instead. Maybe she could at least read something on her phone battery. But after just a few minutes of scrolling through her social media, the battery indicator went from red to nothing. The phone died in her hands. She sighed deeply. It was only 8:30 p.m., but outside her window, the darkness was complete. The entire estate was swallowed up in blackness. No street lights, no car headlights moving down the main road, nothing but the sound of crickets and the occasional voice from neighbors trying to find their way around. Her mother, Rita, knocked gently on her door. "Adadi, come and eat something before it gets cold. We made rice and stew." Ada got up and went to eat with her family in the sitting room. They ate by candlelight, the flickering orange glow making everything look like strange and dreamlike. Her younger sister, Lara, who was still in secondary school, made jokes about how they looked like they were in a horror movie. Everyone laughed, but the joke felt a little too close to home. After dinner, Ada helped her mother with the dishes, washing them by candlelight in the kitchen. The water was cold, and her hands felt numb as she scrubbed. When she finished, she went back to her room, lay on her bed, and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the night. Around midnight, she finally drifted off to sleep. At 2 a.m., Ada's bladder woke her up. She needed to use the toilet badly. For a moment, she just lay there in the darkness of her room, mentally preparing herself. The toilet was outside, about 20 steps from their flat, behind the building where her family kept the septic tank. She had made this journey hundreds of times before, even in the dark, but tonight felt different somehow. Her heart was beating a little faster than normal. She thought about just waiting until morning, but the pressure in her bladder told her that wasn't going to work. She sat up on her bed and felt around for her phone at the bedside table. Maybe it had charged somehow. No, it was still dead. She had forgotten to charge it before the power cut. The beam of a torch would have been nice. Actually, no. The beam of a torch would have been everything. But nobody in the family kept torches by their bed. Why would they? Port Harcourt was a big city. They had electricity most of the time. Torches were for villages and bush areas, not for an estate in the city. Ada stood up, her eyes slowly adjusting to the darkness. She could make out the shape of her window, the dark outline of her furniture. Her heart was still beating a little faster. She told herself it was nothing. It was just the toilet, just a few steps away. She had done it 1,000 times. Ada opened her door quietly and stepped into the hallway. The darkness in the corridor seemed even thicker than in her room. She could hear her father snoring from the main bedroom, her mother's softer breathing, the sound of JD moving around in his sleep. Ada felt her way along the wall, moving slowly, her bare feet cold against the tiled floor. She opened the back door and stepped outside into the night. The darkness outside was almost physical, like she was walking through water. The air was warm and humid, carrying the smell of rain and earth. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The sound made her jump, and she stopped for a moment, letting her eyes adjust further. She could see a little better now, the faint outline of the toilet structure about 20 steps ahead. She could see the edge of her family's small backyard garden. She could see the fence line. Ada took a deep breath and started walking. This is the story where the story really begins. This is the moment that will change everything, not just for Ada, but for everyone in the Sunshine Estate.
Ada was about halfway to the toilet when she felt it. Her right foot came down on something wet. At first, she thought nothing of it. Some people had their bath earlier that evening and the ground was muddy and slippery. Water from the gutter sometimes ran around the back of the flat. Nothing unusual. She kept walking. But then, her next step felt something else. This time, it wasn't just wet, it was warm. She could feel the difference between the cool night air and this warmth spreading under her foot. It felt almost like body heat, like touching skin in the darkness. Ada stopped walking. She stood completely still, her heart suddenly pounding in her chest like it wanted to escape her body. "Hello," she called out, her voice small and uncertain. "Who's there?" Nobody answered. The silence that followed was worse than any answer would have been. Ada stood frozen in the darkness, every nerve in her body suddenly on high alert. Her breathing became shallow. She could hear every single cricket in the yard. She could hear a car passing on the main road, far away. She could hear the blood rushing in her own ears. "What did you step on?" a voice inside her head asked. "What was that?" She didn't want to know. She wanted to turn around and run back to the flat, back to her room, back to safety. But her bladder was still desperate, and there was still something holding her in place. That strange human stubbornness that makes us go forward even when every instinct is screaming at us to go back. "It's probably nothing," she told herself. "You're just scared because it's dark. It's probably just water. It's probably just a piece of cloth that got wet from the rain." But deep in her heart, she knew that wasn't true. She took another step forward, more carefully this time. Her foot came down on solid ground. Then another step, and another. She was moving forward, even though something inside her was saying that this was a mistake. This was a big mistake. Her hands were shaking now. She could feel the trembling in her fingers, in her arms, spreading through her whole body. The warm, wet thing that had touched her foot seemed to linger on her skin, even though she knew that was impossible. What if it was a person? What if someone was lying in the yard at this time? And who would just lie there in the dark without saying anything? "Stop it," she told herself. "Stop being paranoid. It's just your imagination running wild because it's dark. People's brains do that in the dark. They make things scary." She was only about 5 steps away from the toilet now. She could see the small structure more clearly now, a dark shape against the slightly less dark sky. Just a few more steps, and she would be inside. She could lock the door behind her. She could sit down and do what she needed to do, and then she could walk back to the flat with no problems. That was when she felt it move. It wasn't a big movement. It was subtle, more like a shifting of weight. But it was unmistakable. Whatever that warm, wet thing was under her foot, it had moved. Ada's scream caught in her throat, stuck between her mouth and her lungs. She didn't even manage to make a sound. She just stood there, frozen, one foot still on top of whatever it was, the other foot in mid-air, her entire body trembling. The thing under her foot was alive. And then, just as sudden as lightning, a pair of car headlights flashed across the yard. A vehicle was passing on the main road, maybe 100 meters away, and its headlights swept across the darkness of the backyard like a searchlight. In that brief moment of light, no more than 2 seconds, maybe 3, Ada saw it. A long, thick, black shape stretched across the path in front of her. It was coiled with its head slightly raised, and the scales on its body were making them glimmer like dark oil.
A snake. A very big snake. And Ada's foot was right on top of it. The headlight passed and the darkness rushed back like a wave, but it was too late. Ada had seen it. She had seen the snake. She had felt it moving beneath her foot, and now she was standing in the pitch-black darkness with a cobra coiled at her feet, and she couldn't see a single thing. Time seemed to stop. Ada couldn't breathe. Her entire body had gone rigid, like someone had poured concrete into her bones. Her mind was spinning, throwing questions at her from every direction. Should I scream? Should I run? What if I scream and he bites me? What if I run and he follows me? Can snakes move fast? How fast? Is it a cobra? Is it poisonous? Oh God, is it poisonous? The snake didn't move. Ada didn't move. They were frozen together in the darkness, two creatures locked in a moment of terror. She could feel the snake's body under her foot, the muscular, thick mass of it, the scales. It was warm. That was the detail that stuck with her the most. It was warm, like it had been lying there in the night heat, absorbing warmth from the earth. The septic tank. A small rational corner of her brain suddenly said, snakes like warm places. The septic tank is warm. But she didn't have time to think about that now. Very slowly, so slowly that her muscles screamed in protest, Ada lifted her foot off the snake. Her leg was shaking so badly that she could barely control it. The movement felt like it took 1,000 years. The snake didn't strike. It didn't attack. It just lay there, a dark shadow against the darker ground. Ada took one step backward, then another, then another. She didn't take her eyes off where the snake was, even though she couldn't see it anymore. Her heart was hammering so hard that she thought it might actually break through her ribs. 2 more steps, the ground was slippery under her feet. She could feel moisture now, could feel how wet and muddy the backyard had become. The snake didn't move. 3 more steps. 4. Ada kept backing away, step by step, her eyes locked on the darkness where the snake was. Her mind was screaming at her to run, to turn around and sprint back to the flat as fast as her legs could carry her. But some deeper instinct told her that turning her back on a snake in the darkness was a very bad idea. When she was about 10 steps away from where the snake lay, she finally turned around. And then she ran. She ran with her arms flailing in front of her, her feet splashing through the mud, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She crashed through the small garden her mother had planted, trampling over the vegetable beds without even noticing. She crashed into the back door of the flat, her shoulder hitting the wooden frame with a loud bang. The pain shot through her shoulder, but she barely felt it. She pulled the door open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind her. Her hands were shaking so badly that she could almost not turn the lock, but she managed it. The door was locked. She was safe now. She was inside. For a long moment, Ada just stood there in the darkness of the corridor, gasping for breath, her whole body shaking like she was having a seizure. She had seen a snake. A big snake. A cobra, almost certainly, and she had stepped on it. From the main bedroom, she heard her father's voice. Ada, is that you? What happened? Why did you scream? She couldn't answer. She couldn't form words. All she could do was stand there and shake. Her father appeared in the corridor, his eyes confused in the darkness. Ada, what happened? Why did you scream? Snake, Ada managed to whisper. There's a snake in the backyard. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then, her father moved fast. He lit a candle and started putting on his shoes. He was shouting for his mother, for Jedin, for everyone to wake up. Within minutes, the whole house was in chaos. But Ada didn't go back outside. She sat on the couch in the sitting room and hugged her legs to her chest, still shaking, still not able to believe what had just happened. That was when it fully hit her. What could have happened? What so easily could have happened? If that snake had bitten her, if its fangs had gone into her leg or her foot, she would have been poisoned. Out here far from the main hospital in the city, with no power, with no vehicle immediately available, she could have died. She could have actually died. All because she had walked into the darkness without a torch. All because she had thought that a few steps to the toilet was no big deal. She was so wrong.
Morning brought the truth, and the truth was worse than anything Ada could have imagined. By the time the sun came up, the old Sunshine Estate knew about the snake. Our father had called the local animal control officer first thing, and the man had come with some equipment and expertise. What he found in and around the backyard of Ada's family flat was shocking. There were more snakes, not just one, multiple snakes. They had made a home in the warm septic tank underneath the toilet. And the reason they were attracted to this particular spot was simple. During the power cuts, the septic tank stayed warm. It was like a heated nest for the snakes. The officer explained it to Ada's father while Ada listened from the window, still traumatized from the previous night. He said, snakes are cold-blooded. They need heat. During these blackout periods, the septic tank provides exactly that, especially in the rainy season when they are looking for shelter. The heat, the moisture, the darkness is perfect for them. As they searched around the flat, they found eggs under the toilet floor. Snake eggs, dozens of them. This female has been living here for weeks, maybe even months. She's laid eggs and she's protecting them. That's why she didn't attack your daughter. She was just defending her nest. Ada felt her knees go weak when she heard that. The snake hadn't attacked her. It was protecting its babies. If she had stepped on one of those eggs, or if she had frightened the mother snake any more than she already had, but she didn't want to think about what would have happened then. By midday, word had spread through the entire Sunshine Estate. Ada had stepped on a cobra in the darkness, a cobra that was protecting its eggs, a cobra that could have killed her. Neighbors started coming to their flat to see Ada, to confirm that she was okay, to hear the story from her own mouth. Some brought food, some brought herbs and prayers. One elderly woman, Mama Cynthia, from the flat next door, came and just held Ada's hand and cried. Thank God, Mama Cynthia kept saying, thank God, thank God, thank God. You are alive. That's all that matters. You are alive. But Ada couldn't stop thinking about her foot on that warm, scaly body in the darkness. She couldn't stop thinking about how close she had come. That afternoon, her Uncle Bernard came from his own flat a few blocks away. Uncle Bernard worked for an import company and had some money. He brought something with him, several things actually. He said, from today, everybody in this house gets one of these. He put them on the small table in the sitting room. 5 brand new torches. Good ones too, not the cheap ones that could barely light up a meter in front of you. These were proper torches with strong beams and fresh batteries. He said, this is what happens when we forget the basics. We move to the city. We think we don't need the things our parents knew. We forget about the wisdom of the old ways. Our grandmothers didn't have electricity, so they had wisdom about the darkness. They knew that you never walk in the dark without something to light your way. But we forget. And then something like this happens. Ada picked up one of the torches and held it in her hands. It was heavier than she expected, solid and real. She turned it on, and a bright beam of light shot out across the room, banishing all the shadows instantly. She had never felt more grateful for light in her entire life. Ada realized that what happened to her could happen to anyone, and she decided that she couldn't stay silent. Over the next few days, Ada barely left her room. The trauma of that night was still fresh in her mind. She would wake up in the middle of the night with her heart pounding, dreaming about snakes. She would jump at sudden sounds. At night, she would hold her torch so tightly that her hands would hurt. Her mother was worried about her. She would bring her food and try to get her to talk about what she was feeling, but Ada couldn't really explain it. How do you explain the feeling of stepping on something alive in the darkness? How do you explain the terror of not knowing what it was, not seeing what it was until it was almost too late? It was Jaden that finally broke through to her. One evening, about a week after the incident, he came into her room without knocking. He had his phone, which he had managed to charge using a power bank, and he was showing her something. He said, Ada, look at this. I've been telling people at my school about what happened to you, right? And some of the people on social media had been sharing the story. It's getting around.
It showed her a Facebook post where someone had written about Ada's experience with the snake. It had gotten over 200 shares and comments from people all over Port Harcourt and even from other cities. People were saying the same thing, that they had experienced similar things or their relatives had. They were thanking Ada for bringing attention to the danger. He said, "You are helping people, Ada, just by telling your story. You are making people aware." Something shifted in Ada at that moment. Her fear didn't go away, but it transformed into something else. It transformed into a sense of purpose. She got out of bed for the first time in days. She went to her father and her mother and told them what she was thinking. He said, "I want to make a video. I want to tell the whole story about the snake, about stepping on it in the darkness, about how it could have killed me. I want people to know. I want to warn them." Her father looked unsure at first, but her mother understood. She said, "Our daughter wants to help people. Let her help people." That's when Ada decided to start a YouTube channel. It was going to be called Survival Stories from Our People, and she was going to tell true stories about dangers that everyday Nigerians face. Stories that could help others. Stories that could save lives. With Jaden's help and Uncle Bernard's smartphone camera, she recorded her first video. She sat in front of the camera in her school uniform. She wanted to look presentable, professional, and she told the whole story. She talked about waking up at 2 a.m. with a full bladder. She talked about her phone being dead. She talked about being too lazy, too confident to grab a torch. She talked about stepping on the snake in the darkness. And she talked about how lucky she was to be alive. He said, "If that snake had decided to bite me, I would probably be dead right now. It's not a joke. Snakes are real, danger is real, and the darkness hides both of them." The video was simple. No special effects, no professional editing, just Ada telling her truth, holding a torch, looking directly at the camera. Jaden uploaded it to YouTube, and within a few hours, it had gotten 100 views. By the next day, it had 1,000.
3 months later, Ada's YouTube channel had over 50,000 subscribers. She had recorded dozens of videos since that first one about the snake. Stories from her neighborhood, stories from people who had contacted her through social media. A story about a family that had been robbed during a blackout because they couldn't see who was approaching them. A story about an old man who had fallen in a gutter at night and broken his leg because he was walking without light. A story about a child who had gotten lost behind his school during a power cut. Each video ended the same way. Always carry a torch. Always have light. Don't be like me. Don't learn this lesson the hard way. Ada had become something of a small celebrity in her community and online. People recognized her on the streets. Other students at the university would say hi to her. But more importantly, people were listening to her message. Imagine this. Every time someone watched one of Ada's videos and decided to keep a torch by their bedside, they were potentially saving their own life. Every time someone shared her video and their family member decided to carry a torch at night, that person was potentially avoiding the same danger Ada had faced. In the Sunshine Estate itself, things had changed dramatically. Neighbors who had never spoken to each other before were now talking about Ada's story. People were buying torches. People were installing better lighting. People were being more careful. Even the local government had noticed. One official had reached out to Ada through her YouTube channel, asking if she would be willing to work with the local council on a safety awareness project. It wasn't much, just a small project, but it was something. Ada's university grades had actually improved too. She had been so focused on her studies before, always stressed and anxious about doing well, that she had made herself miserable. Now, with the channel taking up some of her time, she felt less pressure. She felt like she was doing something that mattered. Most importantly, Ada had healed from the trauma of that night. The nightmares had stopped. The constant fear had faded. What remained was something different, a kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing that something good had come from something bad. One evening, about 4 months after the snake incident, Ada was in her room recording a new video. The sun was setting outside her window, painting the sky orange and pink. She was sitting with a torch in her hand, the same torch that Uncle Bernard had given her constant companion now.
She said to the camera, "Today, I want to tell you something personal. 4 months ago, I stepped on a snake in the darkness. I was terrified. I thought my life was over. I thought I had made the biggest mistake of my life by being careless, by being lazy, by thinking that a few steps in the darkness wouldn't hurt." She paused and looked directly at the camera. "But that terrible night led me here. It led me to this channel. It led me to talk to thousands of people every week. It led me to help people protect themselves. It led me to find a purpose." She held up the torch. "I don't know what will happen to me in the future. I don't know if I'll finish my engineering degree and work for a big company. I don't know if this channel will make me famous, but I know this much. I know that every single person watching this video right now has the power to save their own life. By simply carrying a torch at night, by being smart about the darkness, by remembering Ada's story and not making the same mistakes I made." Her voice was calm and clear now, confident. "So I'm asking you and begging you, please, carry a torch at night. Tell your family to carry a torch. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, not because snakes are waiting for you in the darkness. They might not be, but because you deserve to see where you are going. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to live." She smiled at the camera, and it was a real smile, filled with peace and purpose. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this channel. Please share these videos. Please help me save lives. Because every time you do, you're not just helping some stranger, you're making sure that nobody else has to step on a cobra in the darkness and survive by sheer luck. She held the torch up to the camera one more time, the light bright and clear, banishing all shadows. Always carry light. Always stay safe. This is Ada, and I'll see you in the next video. Today, torches are as common as mobile phones in the Sunshine Estate. Every household has at least 3. Schools have started programs about nighttime safety using Ada's videos in their curriculum. The local radio station invited her to speak about safety awareness. Ada's mother, Rita, sometimes gets emotional when she talks about what happened. "My daughter almost died, but God turned it into a blessing. He used my daughter to protect so many other people." Mama Cynthia from next door always keeps 3 torches in her house now. One in her bedroom, one in her sitting room, one in the kitchen. She's shown the video to all her children, all her grandchildren. This is what can happen when we're careless. This is why we listen to Ada. Uncle Bernard became one of Ada's biggest supporters. He bought her better equipment to record videos with, and he even helped her start a small non-profit organization to distribute torches to people who couldn't afford them. And Ada kept growing. Her channel grew. Her university grade stayed excellent. She's now thinking about a career that combines engineering with public safety. Maybe designing better lighting systems for low-income communities. Maybe creating products that could prevent these kinds of accidents. But most importantly, Ada changed how people think about the darkness. She took her fear, her trauma, her terrible experience, and she transformed it into something that saves lives every day. The cobra that lived under the Sunshine Estate toilet never came back. The local animal control officer had made sure of that, relocating both the mother snake and her eggs to a safer place in the forest. And the darkness? The darkness is still there, of course. But in the Sunshine Estate, and in thousands of homes throughout Nigeria, people now face that darkness with torches in their hands and Ada's voice in their heads. Always carry light. Because sometimes, the smallest thing, just a touch, just a simple light, can be the difference between life and death. My name is Raina. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned 1 or 2 lessons from this story. Subscribe to our channel, so when we post interesting stories like this, you'll be the first to know.